And we are live. Go time.
Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go time.
Go time.
Hey, folks. This is New
Hi.
Consciousness Now
Right now.
podcast. Yes, right now.
Right now.
Welcome. Glad you're here. I'm Jay Eaker, Dr. Jay Eaker, if you want to get formal. From the BioSoul Integration Center in Louisville, Colorado. At the BioSoul Integration Center, I help soul-led people to embody their soul's gifts so they can share those gifts on the planet and do what it is that they came here to do, fulfill their purpose. And I can be found at www.biosoulintegration.com, and on anywhere you find podcasts, you can find BioSoul Integration, and on all the social platforms, social media platforms, you can find that as well. Yes. Who are you?
That is the ever-evolving question on a daily basis, I have to say.
Other bald guy. Good thing I have a beard. People can tell us apart.
They can actually see that. Well, if I let this 5 o'clock shadow get to about midnight, I'll look like you.
Wow. Grows pretty fast. Right? Nice.
Yeah, it's, it just does. I'm Gail Wolf, or so they call me. That's my name. That's what I was given at birth, was that name. And live in Hanover, Illinois, which is in a thriving metropolis in the northwest corner of Illinois. And I do intuitive reprogramming for folks and do intuitive sessions and group channelings, which is where I bring forward various information, various threads of consciousness, if you will, sometimes energy, for the purpose of healing folks and bringing forward new and novel ideas and concepts for people to help folks move through whatever challenges they might be facing in life, and especially during this time where, well, the shit's hitting the fan. So
right.
Offer some great perspective on how to move through these times. And I could be found on Facebook under my name, GALEWULFF, or at Catalyst Rising. And very soon you'll be able to find me at my upcoming website, which is gailwolf.rocks. And I can also be found on Instagram and LinkedIn. And I would say Twitter, but I have a Twitter account. I just never tweeted my Twitter. I never Twitter. Maybe I've got like 1 or 2 tweets on my Twitter, but I don't really Twitter my tweet.
You haven't flexed your Twitter.
No, I haven't flexed my Twitter yet, so it's untweeted. Yeah. So
maybe we'll just leave that there.
We'll just leave that alone. I think it's best to just let that one ride, not really, go down that road too much. Probably not worthy of that.
Look for Gail.
So there. Look for me and look for Dr. J.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is
we're talking
episode.
What the heck's going on here?
Yeah, what is this? This is episode 23. And the topic is letting trust carry you through challenge. And so we'll be talking about that for maybe a half hour. And then Gail, as he does, will connect with his guides. I don't know what you'd call them. And he's going to do some channeling. We'll connect with the spirit world. We'll connect with the spirit world and beings therein directly. And Gail will do some channeling.
Some channeling.
And that's always interesting.
Oh, yeah, tends to offer an interesting twist to whatever it is that we're talking about. A new dimension, if you will, new perspective. Tends to add some depth, which is always interesting. So,
for sure.
Today's topic to me is trust. A very interesting one. Trust. And it's so interesting because if you've been following our episodes at all, we've been talking a lot about, pain to power, or pain is really here is to help us out. You know, also like leaning into darkness when you need to, and letting love kind of pull you through that. You know, just we just been dancing a bit on the challenges and so forth, and if you've been, like I said, if you've been following along, there's a bit of a progression, because now we're talking about trust,
Mhm.
and trust is always what helps us to pick our foot up and take that next step in life, where, you know, where we've been beaten down, or something so dark or so negative or so challenging has come up in our lives, where everything just seems like everything's wrong and everything's fallen apart, and there's just, almost like there's just no light, if anybody can relate to that. um or it doesn't even have to be that dire, just
Right.
any like challenge at all, and any
Hmm.
challenge at all, like that.
Hmm.
Maybe it's that you're stuck at a red light, and you're going, geez, I'm going to be like 3 minutes late for my appointment,
Right.
and
Right.
I just don't like being late. Holy
Hmm.
cow, I
Hmm.
cannot handle being 3 minutes late, and this stupid red light is making me
What
want
does that
just
what does that mean about me if I'm 3 minutes late? It means all these things about me.
all these things, the stories.
And then I start reinforcing those things, or you can try to let it go.
Yeah. But the thing, it's like it's trusting that it's going to be okay. It's like, even if it's that small of an instance, it's just trusting and leaning into, um, that everything's going to work out, that everything's going to be all right,
Mhm.
and, you know, trusting that if you're late, it's going to be okay. That you'll actually still make it in your appointment. And you'll get everything out of that appointment that you needed. That you won't be judged for being there a few minutes late, and none of the stories that are being carried out in your mind will actually are true, or none of those scenarios play themselves out at all. And so trust is an interesting thing, because it enables us to be comfortable with where we're at, and it's really one of the big things. Is That's the first thing that trust does. It helps us to be comfortable with where we're at. Then the next piece that trust really brings us is that, um, is that once we're comfortable with where we're at, it also helps us to create a better outcome for ourselves. So if we're stressed about something, if we're really worked up about something, and we're really in this negative headspace, or this dark way of thinking about it, or challenged way of thinking about it, that generally creates that type of an outcome, where you literally create your expectations. A friend of mine, I love the way she puts this. She calls it the law of assumption. That when you assume something, that you create it, and so whatever you're assuming is what you're going to create. So if you have a pattern of assuming the worst, but then you decide to change that, there's going to be this interim period where you're just really not sure about what you're doing. You're not sure about what this change is going to be, or if it even works. Where this is where you have to trust. Anytime you step into something that's unfamiliar or unknown, and you are looking for something that's novel or different, trust has to be involved. It's inherent, it's implicit, it has to be there, because trust is really the gateway or the doorway between the unknown and the hoped for. And, um, this really, really, really plays out, during this time, which at the recording here that you're listening to or watching, we're in the middle of what they're calling a pandemic, and COVID. And so everyone's in this lockdown mode, and there are a lot of riots in the streets. We're coming up on the election of 2020, and there's just a lot of chaos that's happening right now, and a lot of seemingly dark scenarios are playing themselves out. And there are a lot of people that are talking a lot of doom and gloom, and that things are falling apart.
Mhm.
We'll never know peace again. And if trust ever had a place, it's here. It's here, and it's right now. And, um, there are not a lot of But depending on where you look, there are not a lot of hopeful signs that are out there, or hopeful things that are happening. But
Hmm.
it depend, like I said, it depends on where you look.
Mm.
And so, with that being the case, trust has got to be in our mindset if we're at all going to
Mhm.
have some form of sanity around what's going on.
Right.
And trust is really big. It's huge for any form of healing. There has to be trust. Any form of change, or um, anything that's going to improve, trust has to be involved.
Hmm. Can I say a few things about that?
Absolutely.
I was thinking that trust really requires sort of like a connection to the present moment. And, you know, there's a way in which all our fears or whatever are, created by sort of an old pattern in our minds. Like I have a client who, she was in this relationship, and she is wanting more closeness, wanting more connection, wanting to go deeper in her relationship. But she was afraid to sort of reach, afraid to sort of mention that. And she brought it up. Tried to talk about it with her partner, and he kind of like disappeared, so like all her fears come up, like what's happening, what's the pattern inside of us that says, it's not okay to sort of like reach and say what you want and honor the parts of you that have needs. And she got up the gumption to sort of do that. And then he disappears. So now she's left sort of, her mind sort of racing, feeling all those fears. Um, and her mind wants to sort of like play out all the scenarios based on the fear. Um, but in my experience, there's like this aversion to feeling that fear, for instance, in our bodies, to feeling the sensation of it. And so it squirts into our heads. And so we think all the thoughts about how, why we could be afraid and what could happen. But that's just designed, I think, to create more of the sensation in our bodies, which we won't feel, which we think we create more thoughts in our head of. It's designed so that eventually we stop and pay attention to the sensation. So, um, I was coaching her in our session to just, what's going on now? Like, you're afraid, right? So bring your attention to the sensation of that fear. And really, that's it. Trust the fear, actually. Trust that life isn't screwing with you, even though, um, like in these sessions that we've been doing here, Gail, these channeling sessions, like, I have definitely fear about what's happening in the world and what might happen. But it seems like your guides or whatever are always saying, yeah, it might get tough, but it's all for a good purpose. Like, life is not screwing with us. We might have to go through some uncomfortable things. This woman it might not work out with her partner, you know, but in the process of that not working out, she's going to become more connected to her authentic self. She's going to get clear on what it is that she really wants. And, life's going to give her, she'll be able to hold stay connected to herself and attract something else into her life that's better, that's more in alignment with her authentic self. So I think trusting often has to do with just like trusting like what's happening in the present moment with this COVID thing. Like, yeah, I'm scared of these things. Well, what does that fear feel like? I'm angry. What does that anger feel like? I know in the Western world, we think we got to do something with it all the time, but often our mind is just actually trying to maintain the status quo. Anything that we could think of in our heads and our thoughts would just help just reiterate the status quo. And so letting yourself feel in the moment. And that connects you, like you were saying, Gail, maybe you said it here, or maybe you didn't say it, but connection to a higher, a source, a higher power or whatever, that connects you to a higher power automatically, connects you to the source.
Absolutely. That's and by the way, some of this recording is not coming through very well. I'm not sure what's going on with the audio, or if it's just if something with Zoom, or maybe it's my connection. I'm not quite sure, but
you're having trouble hearing me. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's broken up considerably. We're getting about every second or third word or so. It's coming through. So it's not great.
That doesn't sound good.
So we're not sure. Hopefully it clears up. Not sure if it's my. It's very well could be my internet. I'm really not sure, but. But yeah, you said something very key in the middle of all that, and it was just that the reliance on a higher source, that there's something better that's carrying us through, and that there's something that it's really the silver lining.
And you got it. You can have your, you can like, this is hold the space for, this is what I'd like to see happen, but then you got to let it go. Right.
Yeah.
You got to trust.
Yeah. And that's the trust, really just letting go. And here's the thing too. I mean, this works even if you're an atheist, where you don't believe in a God, you don't believe in a higher power. You just think that, you're born, we exist in these meat sacks, we die and we turn into worm dirt. And that's all that we all are. That's all that there is. There's nothing else. Nothing. We're just biology, we die, and that's it. And it's like, even for that, when you trust and you're trusting that for them, it wouldn't necessarily be trusting that God makes it better, or that there's a higher power, but it's just trusting that something better happens, trusting that something takes over, and something makes it better, or something improves, that it's not just random. And even if it's random, it's trusting that the randomness will randomly befall you with something better.
Right.
But those
better plan for you.
Life's got something for you, a better plan for you. But you don't have, and suppose you do have a belief in a higher power, and you do believe that there is a God and universal intelligence and organizing principle behind all things. Then it's even easier, because you can lean into that and go, all right, this is going to organize something for me. And the truth of all of this is that, and I got a lot out of this recent interview I heard from listening to a Paul Chek podcast, where he interviews Ibrahim Karim, who is the founder of biotechnology or bioenergetics. And he basically was saying that we live in a universe, we live in a world, or an existence that it's constantly giving us our thoughts, or we are creating it all of the time. Like, we are the creators of our own reality. And the universe itself, the way it works is that when we center on subtle energies, and we create a connection with the subtleties of life, like fear or hope, or whatever the deeper, softer emotions are that are inside that create our reality, that when we form a relationship with those feelings, and we allow them to organize into a type of an understanding, and we begin to operate in the world within that understanding, the universe goes, okay, this is how you are seeing the world, this is how you are understanding the world. And then it starts to show up for you in that way. It's like, okay, that's what you are creating, that's what you want, then here you go. Here are all the understandings to support what you believe. And so literally that is how, and then here, this is how shaman, like, for example, like Indian tribes that, and if anybody that studied shamanism or even different religions knows that there have been miracles that have happened in every different belief system. And some of these belief systems totally contradict one another, but yet both are able to create miracles. So someone goes, well, what's right? What is true? What is correct? What is the right way? And the truth of the matter is, they're both correct because they both believe in what they're doing. And if you think about the principle of that, it is that we are literally gods. We are literally creating ourselves. And that is not blasphemous to say at all. To me, blasphemy is believing that we are not God. How could you be so audacious and arrogant to believe that you're not? It's complete opposite. And so,
I have an example. Sorry, I was looking for a spot to cut in there.
what's that?
I sort of have an example,
Yeah,
sort of how
go
the
ahead.
miracles kind of show up. Like, I had this client, and she's posted something on Facebook, and then one of her friends, like posted something back that was just kind of a little bit in opposition to what she'd said, and this woman kind of, she'd reached a little bit. She'd like, got up some gumption and said something that was important to her. And someone sort of shot back a little bit, and she was having just sort of flexed that muscle that hadn't been flexed much before. She was kind of, like went off the deep edge. She was like, oh, see what happens when I, oh, now, my friend is, now I have created this rift between me and my friend. And, she was losing her shit. Basically, she was going off the deep end. Her thoughts, often I find that it happens like in this situation where people are trying to speak. There's an opportunity to speak their truth, and maybe they're sort of working that muscle out, and they try it, and then there's all the shame or whatever that comes up behind it. See, this is why I don't do that, because this is what happens. But with this lady, I sort of like, just hold on, notice the shame or the fear or whatever that's coming up, and just hang, her impulse was to like try to fix it, like get on back on Facebook and like, try to, say something else, disclaimer, add a disclaimer or whatever. And, but I was like, just, hang out with it. Just hang out with it. Hold. She was at my office. And then then later on, I got a call from her. She emailed me. She said, when she got home, by the time she got home, her friend had called her or something and left a message saying, I'm sorry, I was a little, overbearing there or whatever, so
Mm.
it like,
So there's
it worked itself out. And I experience this myself. Like maybe I say something in an email or something, and then I'm like, oh, did I say that right? Oh, that could be construed this way. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Maybe that was like too much, or, who am I to sort of like be that way or whatever, ask for that or whatever. And, and I want to just like, I want to type back and fix it. But, I find that if I just wait and sit with what's happening, sit with it. And often like 9 times out of 10, it's fine. It works itself out. It's fine somehow. So I don't know. That feels like an example of trust and this sort of like small, like, like letting go of the impulse to try to fix things or whatever. And the small, kind of like miracles that happen in that, as an example.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is, yep.
Those are just like, I don't know.
Just
I feel like
kicking back and letting it happen.
I feel like those are just, there's the big things that you're talking about, but then there's just like little opportunities all the time, like that.
Oh, for sure.
To trust.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that woman too, and it is to kind of tie it in with what I was talking about with like the miracles with the different belief systems. It's like she was literally in the process of creating her drama and believing in her drama. So like literally the universe is showing up to her in that way. It's like, well, all right, this is how you want it to be, then this is the way it'll be. But she was also trusting that something better could happen. Like it sounds like you had instilled in her a belief or the concept that something better could could emerge if she just
Yeah.
chilled out,
Just it would be okay.
helped her to find her
Yeah.
trust.
Just let it, let it ride more.
Yeah.
Trusting is
Yeah.
about letting it ride more.
Yeah.
More often.
Yeah.
I notice that often if
So-
I try to like, I don't know, where does it show up? Like I'm making a video on YouTube or something and I make a thumbnail for it. And then I'm like, oh, whatever. I put this out there and I'm like, oh, I like this better. Or what was a recent example? I can't remember. Something I like, messed with or whatever. And then find out later, I followed this sort of like, afraid, scared impulse to sort of like change something. And it just makes the situation more complicated and worse, I would say, let it ride more often. Just let it ride.
Kick back, don't try to control and let it flow. Trust the
Mhm.
situation.
Mhm.
That's a big thing too, is especially right now, it's a lot of people, trust isn't just in that something better is going to come along or that a situation is going to work itself out. Trust is also trusting in the people that are in our lives. So many of us are used to other people either letting us down or screwing us over or whatever that we don't trust people. We don't trust that someone's there that can actually want what's for us, want a better. And so, one of the big things that I'm seeing right now in people I've been working with is that people have got amazing other people showing up for them and genuinely wanting something better for them and offering to help out, and then people not knowing how to receive that or know how to trust it. And so they go, oh geez, this person actually wants something that's good for me, and they immediately sabotage the person trying to help them by creating a story instantly that, well, this person is trying to help me, they have this and this going on, so therefore, I don't know that I can really help them help, because they'll just create another problem, or you just don't believe that they have your best intentions in heart. And so it's interesting to, that this time it's like, trust these people that are coming forward. When we have a situation that's not great or a challenging scenario that's going on, and other people step forward and like, hey, I'd like to help you out. Or when you ask someone for help and they say, yes, I'll help you out, but I have to do this also, it's like, lean into it. Lean into the little angels that are showing up for us, and the little miracle workers that are showing up for us, that are trying to help us out. Trust that. Trust that that they're there for us and that they will help us out. Because one of the things too is when we've been through some hard times, sometimes we just continually trust that it's going to keep getting bad or keep getting worse, or that bad things are going to continue to happen. So trust can work the other direction as well, and trusting that bad things are going to happen. So be clear in what you're trusting, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Trusting that that things will improve. And to me, so much of that is intention. Like, what are your intentions, and are you paying attention to your subconscious belief patterns?
Choose
A lot of people,
wisely.
they say, "Oh, I choose wisely." It's like,
Choose what you
well,
trust.
do you trust? Yes, I trust, but I still, I still think that someone's going to jerk, because something happened between my mom and my dad, and when I was a kid, that I still think that this is not going to happen, right? And it's like, well, you got to let that shit go. Like, that has to shift. Like, that part's got to get worked through in order for that to really be effective.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
yeah, and so I like to see, I think of trust often as really the chasm between the known and the unknown. is really that leap of faith where you're leaping over, like, let's say you're leaping over a big crack in the ground that's like maybe 3 feet or 2 feet wide, or maybe you're something simple like you're jumping over a stream, a running stream, and you don't want to get wet, and you leap, and in the moment you take that leap, you have it in your mind. I'm going to land. I'm pushing off hard enough, and I'm jumping far enough that I will land on the other side and I will remain dry. So you push off, and in the air, while you're in the air for that split second, you are trusting that you're going to end up on the ground on the other side and be dry. It's not very long, but there's a moment of trust because you don't know. You really don't know. You're trusting that you're going to land. If you knew, I mean, if you were on the ground, then it would be your experience and then you would know it. But until then, it's just trusting that it will be there. And there can be a very strong trust to where you go, I know I'm going to land this, but you still don't truly know it. It's not your experience. You know it when it's happening. And so when you hit the ground, it's like, okay, it worked. But to me, that's how I see trust playing out. Is trust is what happens when you're in the in-between area and you haven't quite landed yet. And sometimes you don't even see the other side of the stream. You have to just jump blindly.
Yeah,
and trust.
if you've done, if you have the benefit of having jumped over that stream a number of times, and you're like, oh, like the first time, you're probably like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And then you did, and then if you have the benefit of doing that a number of times, that if that's just what I find, like, again, you can take there's all these little opportunities to trust, like I mentioned, throughout a day probably. And the more that you do that, the more you see, like, oh yeah, life's gonna catch me somehow. Life's got something better planned for me. And so
Leaning
practice
in instead of leaning out.
Right.
Well, all right. I've been rambling on here for about a half an hour or so about our trust issues.
Rambling, whatever.
We've been talking
Deep wisdom, brother.
Wisdom's been pouring forth.
Speaking of that,
I will
time to connect with
connect in and see what else is going on.
The spirit world.
I'm going to take a moment here and shift my awareness, drop into a deeper level, deeper presence, and bring forward a little message. We'll see what today has to say.
It reminds me of one of my favorite movies with Billy the Kid. No, I can't remember what it was called. They take peyote and they're riding backwards on their horses.
Oh, yeah.
And they go through the Indian camp and they're like,
That was Billy the Kid.
How come they ain't killing us? I don't think it's called Billy the Kid. I can't remember what it's.
No,
Anyway,
Young Guns.
Young Guns. Yes.
Young Guns.
How come they ain't killing us? They can't see us, asshole. We're in the spirit world. Okay.
Anyway. That's right. They ride backwards on their horses.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here once again. We are the future consciousness of humanity. We are those who have the presence in the future. To be able to read where we are in your future, which means that you are in our past as you hear this. And in a very quantum way, we are talking to ourselves. If you are listening to this, you are aware enough to be present in your world in a way in which most are not. Some of these circumstances will still be present in your future, where we currently reside. However, it will not be as pronounced, as things will come together as they should and as is divinely orchestrated. We're grateful to be here and be able to share with you this message today, as it is one that is truly inspirational to us, and it represents the essence of the human spirit. It is not easy to be human. It is not easy to be a being on a planet of free choice, to where anything can happen at any time, and all that you have put so much of your effort, energy, and love into can be washed away in any given moment. And yet, you still strive and move forward in whatever agendas you are each respectively carrying out. This is a great act of courage. However, it is also a huge act of trust. And this is exactly what you spoke about today, is you spoke about trust. And we would like to add some dimensions, and we'd like to add some commentary about trust, as trust is what led you into becoming where you are today. Trust where you are in the future. In your time right now, you have many who are present on your planet who are going to stay, and you have many that are present on your planet who are going to leave. Yes, there are many more who will pass on and will take a different form or die, as you say, during these upcoming years. This is by design, as there are certain energies, there are certain belief patterns that cannot exist on the planet as your planet is evolving into what it is in our current reality. You cannot have and belief patterns. Some of them are holding you back, and there are some souls that are on your planet who know this and are leaving. So the question remains among you all, what decides that? What determines one of you who decides to stay and be present through this entire transition that you are in the middle of? And what determines those who are moving on? There are many, many, many determining factors in this. However, the one we wish to talk about today, which is in alignment with what your topic of conversation was or is trust. There are many on this planet who are leaving not because they don't believe in a higher power or that they don't have an idea that they would like to be different. They simply don't trust enough in what is happening. They don't trust enough, more specifically, in themselves that they can move through this or that the world will turn into a better place. There is a segment of the population that sees what's happening now, and they have no trust in what is happening. They have no trust that they are in the middle of a process that takes them to a better place, and so they leave. We, of course, are speaking to a small percentage of you, and this would be some of the souls that we would call weaker, or rather those who have had fewer experiences on your planet of free choice. And if you are following the logic of what we are talking about here, you can quickly glean or surmise that more lifetime on the planet, or rather more experiences on planets of free choice, lend themselves to have more trust because you simply have to. There is an interesting process that occurs when a soul decides to leave the body. Is it sees every element, every angle, and every facet that it embodied of not trust, or where it did not trust that it was a part of God. In other words, you see where you believe you were separated. And if it were not for that separation, things like trust would not be necessary. Because if you really break it down, trust is the bridge between belief in separation and the knowing of oneness. Trust is the bridge, and you play it out in various scenarios throughout your incarnation cycles. You find yourself repeatedly in scenarios where you do not know the outcome. You do not know what will happen. You do not know where a scenario goes. And so you lean in and you step into the unknown. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. Those who have more trust are more willing to create those types of scenarios more frequently. Those who do not tend to be less empowered. They tend to not want to shake the apple cart as much. They tend not to take what you call risks. They tend not also to believe as deeply in a God or a higher power, even if they state that they do. Understand that you can say one thing, believe it in your mind, but when the rubber hits the road and it's time to do something about what you believe, it is not demonstrated. It is not followed through upon because it's not actually a belief. It is a desire to have faith or trust. So many say, I am spiritual. I believe in a universal intelligence. I believe in a God. But this is a desire to believe. It is a desire to trust. Those who have a deeper those scenarios over and over and over and more frequently. That trust is developed and has been developed primarily through your death and rebirth cycles. Whereas a soul, you have an imprint of memory of the time you die. And as you ascend through the layers of consciousness, you see distinctively where you saw and believed in separation and did not trust. Where we're going with all of this is a beautiful place because it takes you into where you currently are. What we were describing for you in terms of what was happening in the death and rebirth cycle is more of an old energy attribute. You are now in a new energy, and there are new attributes associated with how this process works. So, yes, the process of trust is still something that is in your current reality as it must be because there still is a belief in separation. Therefore, it is necessary to have trust. You still need the trust bridge. What is new about this new energy, or rather the cycle of trust and learning to trust, is that You are looking at a massive, massive global experience of absolute and utter breakdown of what you had put your trust in. Many, many, many millions and billions of you have trusted your governments, have trusted your medical institutions, have trusted your pharmaceutical industries, have trusted the corporations, the religions, and so on and so forth. Institutions, while having a positive intention on the surface, had nefarious agendas behind the closed doors. These agendas are coming forward and burying themselves for all to see, is dismantling the trust that was placed in the solidarity of the world you live in. In other words, most of you live in a world which you believe is constructed by the larger organizations that run it. That is not trust. You cannot. Is absolutely temporary. There is a desire to, there's a desire to trust this world, but deep, deep, deep within each of you, on the deepest levels of your subconscious minds and your subconscious consciousnesses, you understand that you are more than your physical existence. You know on the deepest recesses of your being that you're part of something bigger. You are part of something grander. And so, what you are a part of right now is you are a part of the dismantling of false trust. You are realigning yourselves with a trust in a higher power, if you will, which, by the way, if you're following the thread of what we're talking about, that higher power leads right back to you. That's right. You are and have been leaning into trusting things outside of yourself. The invitation now is to lean in and trust that which is inside yourself. Lean into what's in your heart. Lean into what is in the deeper parts of your being. And this is where the new energy comes in. There is an acceleration, or rather a proclivity that exists within each of you that is new. It is new in your subconscious minds. It is new within your DNA as it is activating within your DNA. And this activation is the activation of a certain frequency of light within each of you. This certain frequency of light is one of the founding principles of your very existence, and therefore it is illuminating all to be seen, all that is true, all that is untrue. As this illuminates and as you adjust to this, as you begin to see it and sense it and know it to be true, your sense of trust is shifting from the outer world and to your inner world. It is happening in your existence, in your incarnation, where you are still alive and you are not having to leave your physical bodies in order to see this truth. There are populations of you out there who have called this enlightenment. There are populations who have called this seeing the light, becoming the light, embodying your light body, if you will. There are all manner of labels for this process that we just described succinctly for you. Understand that the beauty of what we're talking about is that trust is something that you will not have to work for quite as hard anymore, because it becomes implicit in the knowing of the truth of that which you are. Therefore, you become just a little bit more gutsy in what you're willing to lean into and what you are willing to say no to. Because what is being asked is to lean into your own truth. Do you really trust what they're telling you on the news? Do you really trust the corporations on your planet? Do you really trust your government? Do you really trust your doctors? Do you really trust what they're asking you to put into your bodies? Do you really? Ask yourself this. Or are you simply following along because it's too uncomfortable to go against the crowds? Ask yourselves these questions and start trusting what's happening inside of yourself and turn a blind eye to this no more. It is time to wake up, grow up, and show up. Are there any questions that you have that you would like to ask about this?
Yeah, I would say no. I would say if there's anything that you have to say in closing.
Absolutely. We wish to share with you that you are doing wonderful in this process. You are doing wonderful. Lean into what you are not familiar with and trust that you are cared for and loved for beyond measure. Trust in that. As you face the coming months and as you endure what is unveiling before you in your news and in your media, to come home to you. Time to be. Take time to not listen to your thoughts, but to hear the quiet voice of truth that whispers beneath your loud thoughts. That little whisper of truth that dwells deep, deep, deep within you is a spark of light that we are speaking of that is illuminating itself throughout humanity at this time. It's so soft, it is so subtle, and for most, you can only find it when you are still and you are quiet. But when you hear it, you cannot refute the truth that it tells you, no matter how deeply you wish to deny it. Trust in what you hear it say. Until next time, be well and enjoy the journey. Whoa.
Whoa.
I got straight up intense with that one.
Straight up. You mean where they were like, wake up, grow up, wake up, and that sort of thing? What do you mean?
Wake up, grow up, and show up.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it just that part, or did the was their tone more sort of intense the whole time?
It was like it was just they were just ramping up the whole time.
Mm.
Like it just kind of started off, just kind of meandering, making a few points, tying a few things together, and all of a sudden it was like boom. Very interesting.
What do you think?
Very interesting indeed.
What's that about? Why did they get firm?
What's that now?
What's that about? Why did they get firm like that, you think?
I think there are a lot of people that are just and there's a sense that the sense that I was getting was that they're trying to slap a few people awake. Like wake up, man. Like quit being such an idiot. Like wake up. Like stop. I mean, you're smarter than this. You're wiser than this. Wake up. Like, quit selling yourselves short. Like, you know the truth. It's in your belly. You're just not listening. Like listen to your body. Listen to what's happening inside. You know, you like why are you even watching this debate on TV? Like why are you even watching this politician type of thing? This is like literally what they're like showing. Like why are you listening to these people talk about these things? Because your body is telling you the truth. Like why are you spinning your wheels listening to these charlatans on TV? Like they're just full of it. All they want is your money or your patronage or your power or your energy or your vote or whatever. Like they don't care about you. They don't. All they want is something from you. So stop giving it to them. Like none of these corporations, religions, these organizations, like they're not really not interested. They're just interested in their own.
At the top, it seems
gain.
like at the top, it seems like it's like that. Like, you know, for instance, like there are doctors or whatever who have people's best interest in mind, but you know, at the top of the pharmaceutical companies or whatever, they sort of get that feeling, you know, they don't really care for us, but
you know, sure. And you know, it's interesting. It's like, you know, the power of the priest or the pastor or the rabbi or the shaman or the holy person, you know, where they're wearing the robes, like those robes in this day and age have been replaced by the white scientific jacket. It's the same thing. It's just a different facet,
different kind of church.
Different kind of church. And you know, people are right now believing in the church of science, the religion of science, and that, you know, that our germ theory beliefs are going to save us, you know, from this horrible COVID thing. And you know, and it's the trees that we're barking up with this are, especially with what they're talking about doing to solve it. It's like, oh boy, you know, this is not something that serves everyone here.
Right. Yeah. Someday we'll get the whole story. Someday we'll look back and we'll be like, oh boy, we were dumb.
Yeah. And I think that's really more what they're driving at was, you know, just wake up and start paying attention to what's going on here, because, you know, it's
trust your gut.
Trust your heart. Gut. Yeah.
It's in there. That still small voice is in there. Cool. Well, thanks, Gail.
You betcha.
For putting your body on the line.
For trusting.
For trusting.
So speaking of that, what is our next our next episode here is plant medicine.
Plant medicine, exactly.
Plant medicine will be episode 24.
Yep.
So that'll be an interesting one. That will be an interesting one. Speaking of trust, that
should we both show up? Should we both show up high on mushrooms? Should we do the podcast tripping balls?
Little psilocybin.
or whatever your entheogen of choice is.
Right. That's a great idea. Well, that's not a bad idea, Jay. I think that sounds like a good time. I'm not sure what I would do with the rest of my day, but I think
Yeah,
that sounds pretty
exactly.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, so great. I'm
Yeah.
Jay Eaker from the BioSoul Integration Center. Look me up at www.biosoulintegration.com and other social media platforms and podcasts and whatnot. Been great being with you.
And I'm Gail Wolf, and I can be found on gailwolf.rocks and also on Catalyst Rising on Facebook, and then also my name on Facebook, as well as Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Got my own YouTube channel, a bunch of videos on there. So, and also, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the lower left-hand corner button that you see there on YouTube, or actually lower right-hand as you are looking at it on your screen. Be sure to subscribe so you can catch every single episode of New Consciousness Now as it comes out.
Nice.
Until then, until the next episode, take care, be well, and remember to trust.
See you guys.